DNEG was Fast and Furious 10's main VFX partner and, in addition to some smaller ones, they handled two major sequences in the film. The Rome rolling bomb sequence and the Portugal chase in the third act, involving the cannon car sequence, the car jump, the tunnel grab, and the highway chase sequence. An interesting thing about the Rome rolling bomb sequence was that it was shot in a lot of different locations. Some was shot in Rome, some in Turin, and because the sequence has a certain pace to it, some of the locations had to be compressed distance-wise. So the final route the sequence followed isn't actually true to real life. They then had to combine these two locations to create the Rome environments, either by altering the plates shot in Turin and adding Roman features, or by enhancing the plates shot in Rome. For obvious reasons, they couldn't just drive a car and roll a 1-ton ball down the real Spanish steps in Rome, so they recreated the steps on a studio lot in London to shoot the ball and car portion of the action, and then shot the live action portion with the extras on the real steps in Rome. Then they composited both shots along with additional CG pyro elements, smoke, dust, and a CG fountain della Barcaccia. For the explosion, they started by referencing both nuclear and underwater explosions throughout history, and their final explosion was a hybrid of both. From their references, they learned that these kinds of explosions generate a lot of dust, and visually that dust overtakes pretty much everything else, so the building destruction around the explosion became almost secondary, and the final look was really the overwhelming dust that is created by these types of big explosions. For the shockwave sequence, they looked at real-life references of tornadoes and hurricanes that reach up to 150 miles per hour. They referenced what would happen to the trees, the buildings, and the water, and then tried to recreate something similar. The 6 Carabinieri police cars had explosive rams set underneath them, and these were set off in sequence, whilst Dom's car was set on a rig that was designed to lift it up onto its front bumper and then drop it safely back down again. These rigs and rams were then painted out, and both the explosion and shockwave itself were created in Houdini with lots of different passes to determine the different types of debris, building destruction, the water simulation, spray and waves, and the dust from the ground. Below FX were involved in various sequences, including Agent Aim's high-tech minimalist briefing room, some digital set extensions for the Toretto house, the lift shaft fight sequence that occurs as Cypher is escaping from her high-rise building, Jacob and Little B's escape in their canoe plane, and the big fight that happens between Letty and Cypher in the medical lab, as well as the medical robot, which was a practical robot in wider shots where you don't see it moving. But for the close-ups and animated shots, they built a digital version based on LiDAR scans and photography of the practical model. They then augmented it, adding new tools and details to create a bit more movement and interest in the shots, and adding a little HAL reference in there too. They also worked on the escape from the black site and the endless icy environment where Letty and Cypher are greeted by a cresting submarine breaking through the ice. The icy environment was created and rendered in Unreal Engine. This enabled them to quickly block in mountain shapes and easily jump around camera angles, making it easier to find a composition that worked across all shots. Once they had the base environment, they generated a library of FX simulations, of snow dust and other particulate being blown around that they could mix and match depending on the shot. Lighting the sequence was more complex. They had a stronger sunlit directional look for the wide shots, like where the submarine is cresting through the ice, and had to balance that with some close-up plate photography that was shot under more overcast conditions. One big focus with the stark sunlight was ensuring there was enough detail in an otherwise featureless environment. Unfortunately, a snowbound environment like Antarctica naturally looks oddly CG, so it was important to pick up interesting shadows or specular kicks on the snow so that it didn't read as unrealistically plain. The CG submarine itself was based on an Akula-class nuclear-powered attack submarine with some artistic license to ensure it matched with a partial set piece for interaction with Gal Gadot's character, Giselle. Ghost VFX was tasked with working on the bridge sequence. This sequence occurs on a fictional bridge over an expanse of water in Rio de Janeiro. And since the majority of the sequence was fictional, it required a lot of VFX work, including CG explosions and fire simulations, digital set extensions and sky replacements, CG smoke, embers and dust, pyro elements and bullet impacts, digital tire marks and digi-doubles, CG helicopters, water simulations, and of course the bridge itself. After all this, you can kind of see why some people really enjoy the Fast and the Furious franchise movies, and why some people hate them, and why some people just don't care. But one thing we should all do after seeing the tremendous amount of work, skill, and planning that goes into making them is respect them.